Hi, my name is Dr. Tanya Pollard. A few of you might not already know me as Miss Tanya. I've probably tutored a few of you. What you might not know is that I've gone to school for a very long time. I graduated high school really early, so I started university early. I went to a school in the United States called Harvard University. It's in a place called Cambridge outside of Boston in Massachusetts. You might see it a lot on TV. Lots of movies are based on Harvard. It's a very big school and one of the best in the world. And there, I obviously started out going to law school, and I decided I didn't want to be a lawyer anymore. And my grandpa looked at me and said, "Well, what are you going to be? Because you already have a lot of schooling." So I decided to be a criminologist. That's part of a type of schooling called sociology. And what we do is we look at groups of people. And so I really like people, so I learned to study them. And I became a criminologist, and I have something called a doctorate. So for those of you who are going to go to university, that would mean you go to school for 4 years and you get an undergraduate degree. And then you decide you really like school and you go to school for 2 more years and get a master's degree, which means you're super smart and you know lots about the thing that you're studying. And then you decide, well, I really don't want to leave school yet. So you spend 2 more years writing an incredibly long assignment. Usually it's about 100 to 200 pages about research, and you do interviews and you talk to lots of people. And then when you finally have this beautiful document that you've spent day and night working on, you give it to a panel. And then you have to defend your panel and say, this is my thesis, which is just a fancy name for the report that you wrote. And lots of these people have already written their own theses, and they will say, well, tell me why yours is really good. And that's what you do. And at the end of the day, they say, you did a good job. We are going to grant you your doctoral diploma, and you get to have fancy letters in front and behind your name. And probably get a better job than what you had before. And people have to call you doctor. And they start asking you for band-aids and things, but you're not that kind of doctor. So I also went to school after that because I wasn't quite satisfied with all of the things that I'd learned about people. And as a criminologist, you learn why people do bad things. And I think that might have a lot to do with the assignment that you're working on. So I became a mom, and my kids needed a lot of educational help. And so I decided, well, maybe I should get a teaching degree. So I did. And so I'm a teacher and a criminologist. So now I know why little kids do bad things too. And then, well, my kids, they had like these really weird learning things. So I decided to be not just a teacher, but a Montessori teacher, which is a whole different way of looking at how kids learn and how little kids learn especially. So I did that. And then I thought, if kids are learning one way, maybe I should teach parents. So I got a degree in family literacy. So teaching parents how to be better story readers, to actually do the funny voices and use little finger hand puppets and do crafts and go grocery shopping together and play board games and do all that kind of stuff so that their kids would become better at school. So all of that boils down to where I am now. And you'll probably see me at the library a lot. I do lots of library programs. I teach a sewing class at the library where lots of you would probably know me from. So yeah, that's what I do. And right now, I run a tutoring service and a Montessori school out of my house, which is another place where some of you might know me from. So from a great big old school in the United States to a bunch of different schools in Canada, the University of Alberta, Simon Fraser University, McMaster University, and some in Europe too. I've actually taught classes at Trinity College in Ireland and at Oxford University in England. So both of those places are really old schools too, and I really love the different places that I've got to go and meet people and learn about them. So now you know a little bit about me and why I get to talk to you today about crime. So I'm not a lawyer, and I decided that I really didn't want to be a lawyer because it was really hard to stand up and try and defend somebody that might not actually be innocent. So instead, I decided to figure out why people commit crimes and why do we even have crimes at all? Like, why is something that's considered not good in Canada be perfectly normal in other parts of the world? Like in Singapore, you spit on the sidewalk, you can get fined $500 and actually be put in jail for the day. In Canada, if you spit on the sidewalk, the lady next to you will say, "That's gross," and keep walking away. So it all depends on something called society. Now, society is groups of people living together. That's the simplest way that I can explain it to you, because the textbook that actually defines society is literally that big. So society defines what is good and what is bad. Just kind of like your mom and dad, they decide what's good and bad at your house. Society does the same for all of the people living together. That way, we don't all run around and do our own thing and not have to have some sort of responsibility. I bet you hear that a lot. You have to be responsible. So there's lots of different things that might drive somebody to do something that we say is a crime. And now in your story, you have a man that lives in a house with another person, and eventually he ends up killing him. So we know that something bad has happened. Before you start trying to formulate your opinion about whether he was insane or whether he was not insane, it might be good to think about what caused him to do the thing in the first place. Now, most of the time, we leave that up to doctors, like psychiatrists and psychologists. Those kind of doctors deal with medical stuff. Now, doctoral students and doctoral holders like what I have, we look at different things, not medical things. So you might want to think about what could have been happening to this man that caused him, with big quotation marks, to snap. Could it be pressure from having to live somewhere that's not his home? Maybe the guy was not very nice to him, but he loved him. So there are lots of different things that we might class as crimes. And so as sociologists and as criminologists, we keep track of crimes and we interview a lot the criminals. We take all of the data from those psychiatrists and all of the different statements, and we group them all into different areas with similar traits and similar characteristics. So while we might not know the exact criminal, we can say that this murder was committed by somebody that was probably part of this group. Like, they may be male, they may be from a low-class family, they may have had a hard time in school because all of the previous crimes that are very similar to this one had people that fit into those categories. That's why we can tell there's a lot of difference between the kind of person that would be an axe murderer and the kind of person that might be a bank robber, or somebody that might be doing inside trading at a stock brokerage or something like that. Different crimes have different kinds of people, and that's kind of what sociologists look into with the help of psychiatrists and psychologists. So when we look at crime, we want to look at motivation, and not just what's going on up here, but what's also going on around them. So the kind of family they came from. And you're not given a lot of information in your story, but you might be able to make some really good guesses. And that's what we do, is we look at the kinds of things that make a person that aren't inside their body. So the kind of family they came from, what kind of relationships they had with important people in their lives, and also where they lived and how they liked where they lived. Because you can live in a really rough area but still have a really great life, because like a lot of times you've probably heard life is what you make it. So those things all go together with what's inside a person to make a criminal. So when you are considering making your judgment against this man, whether he is guilty and whether he is insane, then maybe you need to consider some of the other things. And it all boils down to proof. You have to be able to find concrete evidence of what actually happened and be able to support it with those opinions. So I wish you really good luck, and hopefully we can see some great debates happening in your classroom. And if you see me around, say hi. Bye.